minutes or anything for last?
I didn't know because I didn't know that I was going to do that before. Change the president.
Yeah.
I did write it.
I think last time we talked about having you go ahead and, if you don't mind.
But it was the end of the service.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well, it's all right if you go ahead and start doing that for minutes.
I just said, meeting was led by new president. No minutes, and the secretary has not been elected at that time. And then it said, I was asked by the continuing secretary, and I accepted. But then someone else would take this job over.
Well, I'll tell you what. If we just step out, the Lord's going to bless us no matter what, you know. And He's good to us. Sometimes, you know, like we talked yesterday at the board meeting, we just step out, you know, and, you know, He's our Father. And we are the children. And we're learning. And I know for sure there's been times you know, was stepping out there and had no idea how God was going to help me in going through and doing what I needed to do. But I tell you what, He's always there and He helps you every time you do that. And He wants us to do that, to step out on faith and believe that He is there and that He can help you and show you along the way. I praise Him for that. We're going to go ahead and do the have Pastor Toby come up and do our devotional. And our scripture focus for tonight is 2 Corinthians 10, 15, and 16. And we'll give it to him.
I hope I didn't realize, well, I heard it one other time, that speaker is garbled up here. I don't know if you all can hear it up here that bad or not, but it sounds a little garbled. So we need to maybe check into that. All right. Well, it's, as Chrissy said, it's good for you all to be here this evening. If you weren't here, I guess we wouldn't have service. Amen. And we're thankful that you're here tonight talking about that this evening. Unless somebody wants to step up and do next Wednesday, all of us are going to be, a lot of us are going to be down at camp, and we'll have to cancel the service unless you want to get together and just pray or have a devotion or whatever. And so if no one, I was hoping there'd be a few more people here tonight where they might step in and do that. But anyhow, we will have to just cancel the service next week unless we get word that somebody would do that. So as of right now, it's going to be canceled for next week. But anyhow, I want to talk to you this evening from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 15 and 16. As Chrissy talked about there just a little while ago, our mission focus tonight is going to be on Magnolia, and the title of it is Areas Beyond. And it's a real good lesson tonight from that text. And the scripture reference that it gives us this evening does come from 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 15 and 16. I'd like to read that for you this evening. You can follow along if you have your Bible with you, or follow along on the screen as well this evening. Verse 15 out of the NIV, neither do we go beyond our limits by boasting of work done by others. Our hope is that our faith continues to grow. Our sphere of activity among you will greatly expand so that we can preach the gospel in the regions beyond you. For we do not want to boast about work already done in someone else's territory. This is from the lesson tonight where we're going to talk about fast facts here in a little bit, but I'm borrowing one of it for the introduction. It says this: according to Barnabas Fund research, in 1980, I want you to listen to this. In 1989, the country only had 4 Christians. You're going to hear some rather interesting facts about Magnolia tonight. I mean, it's an amazing, amazing place. It really is. Many times that number, 35 at the time of the writing of this lesson, are currently worshiping in the first church or first yurt. Is that how you say it? Yurt, those little building or cloth buildings like a tent sort of yurt. Urt, maybe, Y-U-R-T. First Urt of the Nazarene. From 4 to 35 since 1989. And like I said, that is from the lesson book this evening where we're going to get to in just a little moment. But Paul writes this part of the scripture in Corinthians to appeal some things that of his authority as an apostle. This passage Paul gives is the beginning of the 3rd section of Corinthians. And the chapters in this 3rd section begins with chapter 10 and goes through chapter 13, verse 10. And Paul was defending his apostolic authority. He did this to silence the critics. You ever have a critic? You ever have anyone who criticized everything you'd done or was very critical of who you are and what you did? Well, that's what Paul was. He was defending his authority. He wanted to silence his critics in Corinth and perhaps elsewhere permanently, and to confirm the united support of the Christians there where he was at. And one of Paul's major purpose in writing this letter was to prepare the way for his next visit, as we see here in chapter 9, verses 3 and 4. He had just talked about that. He says, "But I am sending the brothers in order that our boasting about you in this matter should not prove hollow, but that you may be ready as I said you would be. For if the Macedonians come with me and find you unprepared, we not to say anything about you would be ashamed of having been so confident." And so consequently, Paul felt compelled to establish his apostolic authority firmly, to let him. He was called of God. You remember the trip, right? He was on the road to Damascus, and he was out to arrest or kill or whatever he could to silence the Christians. And on the road, he's met with the blinding light of the Lord, and it blinded him, and he had scales on his eyes, and yet he found out that Jesus really was the Messiah. And it changed his life forever. You know, being critical can destroy what we do. When people start criticizing, it can destroy us or our authority. Wow. What would we do tonight if we didn't have the writings of Paul? If my memory serves me right, it's like a third of the New Testament. Some of you fresher students might remember that or know about that. But there's a lot of books written by Paul. And if they would have met in the council that put the books of the New Testament together and had Paul's writing in there, and they would have said, well, you know what? and start being critical of some of his writings, we wouldn't have the New Testament we have today. And so he had to establish his authority of being called of God. He had to establish the authority that God gave him to go to the Gentiles. Not the Jews, but to the Gentiles. That's why he went and done all the missionary journeys that he did. And these verses in chapter 10, verses 1 through 18, Paul replies to that charge made against him, by responding to a charge of cowardice in verses 1 through 6, a charge of weakness in verses 7 through 11, and a charge of intrusion in the verses 12 through 18. That's what he's defending and giving authority in this chapter 10. And evidently, as I said, one or more critics in Corinth had evidently directed these charges against him and made them against him. And really, failure to submit to apostolic authority could have been very dangerous. And the consequences could have been, as I said, leading to us not having some of the inspired, God-given scriptures that were given by Paul. And so the reasoning for his writing in this letter, what he does, was to spare his beloved readers from these ill effects that Paul wrote as he did. Not out of carnal sense of wounded pride, but to defend his authority of the Scripture. He was anxious. He was anxious that all the Corinthians acknowledged that he was not doing this. He was not doing what his critics were doing. They were taking credit for what Paul had been doing in Corinth. They were apparently claiming that the spiritual vitality of the Corinthian church was due to the ministry, or their ministry, in spite of Paul's influence in the region. And this is sometimes a temptation for those who follow others in ministry. Sometimes they confuse unconsciously or otherwise. In the case of Paul's critics here, they do it consciously. They're out actually to try to destroy his ministry. The results of their work, however, and the results of their predecessors' work followed Paul, thank God. It was given credit to, and Paul wanted the Corinthians to continue to support him as he reached out to yet unevangelized fields such as Rome and Spain in the future. And he hoped that his ministry would take him even further still. And so in 2 Corinthians 10, 17 and 18, he closes this chapter out this way. And he says, but my screen just died on me. He says, yeah, I've got it. But let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. You see, these critics were boasting in themselves. Paul done the work, but they were taking the credit. Look at us. And Paul's saying, look, here's the bottom line. If you're going to boast, you better be boasting in the Lord. Lift him up. Give him glory. For it is not the one who commands or commends himself who is approved, but the one whom the Lord commends. And then he says in verses 21, Jeremiah, let me go back. I went one slide too many. The bottom line and summary of what Paul's doing here is that he's purposed not to take credit, to boast in. He wasn't that way. He never boasted in what others had accomplished in their service for Christ. He never took the credit for what other people did. He could not even boast about what he had accomplished. And since it was God that was work through him, he couldn't even boast about what he had accomplished. Isn't that what, I mean, those of you that was in the board meeting last night, isn't that what we were saying last night in a sense? That it's not us, it's him. It's not us, it's him. And the only boast, therefore, that we should ever boast about is the Lord. And that is, he would be proud only of his Lord. And if we're going to be proud and boastful, it needs to be in the Lord, not in what we think we have accomplished. He, in fact, quoted Jeremiah, who expressed this thought well in Jeremiah 9, verse 24. He says this, "But let the one who boast about this, that they have," we'll get to it again, "that they have the understanding to know me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these I delight, declares the Lord." Jeremiah had it right too. And Paul was following right along. And the only commendation worth anything is the work that God has done through his servants, not their words. In this passage, Paul establishes the spreading of the gospel is the priority of the Christian ministry. The spreading of the gospel is the priority of the Christian ministry. Our lesson says this about the main point of the lesson tonight, and that is to learn about ministry in an area which, while a new field for the Church of the Nazarene, has an old and richly unique cultural heritage. And you're going to see that about Mongolia tonight. You're going to see that they have a rich, unique cultural heritage. And going from 4 to 35 might not seem a lot to you and me. But when you see some of the things, well, in fact, we're going to just share a little video here with you to begin with. You're going to see a unique group of people. Let me show you the video before Chrissy gives the rest of the lesson.
Mongolia, one of the newest fields for the Church of the Nazarene, has a rich history of life on the edge of wilderness and civilization. The Great Khans expanded Mongolia's territory to be the greatest contiguous land empire in the ancient world. Genghis Khan, born in Mongolia AD 1162, is credited with uniting most of the Mongol clans. In 1206, he was named Genghis Khan, which means King of Oceans, or Universal King. Traditionally, Mongols built stone altars or shrines for worship on top of high places like sacred mountains. Jesus spoke about right worship in the book of John when he was asked by the woman at Jacob's well. Jesus said, "A time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth. For they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the Spirit and in truth." In modern times, most people in Mongolia live in yurts, round structures of fabric stretched over a skeleton of poles. Believers gather in the first yurt of the Nazarene to worship God. An outreach through music, gardening, sports, and friendship is growing the church. Today, Nazarene missionaries and national leaders in Mongolia are working to introduce the King above all kings, who offers hope and peace.
right. I have handouts on areas beyond. And this is a fill-in-the-blank handout that as we go through our study tonight, we'll give you answers for the blanks on your sheets as we go through the lesson tonight. Fast facts. Mongolia is one of the most sparsely populated nations in the world, with only 5 people per square mile, 2 people per square kilometer, according to the United States. United Nations, I'm sorry. Genghis Khan, born AD 1162, united most of the Mongols' clan. His grandson, Kublai Khan, established the first Pony Express-style postal service in Mongolia. Many Mongolians still lived in gars, also known as yurts. These portable dwellings were traditionally used by nomads in the steppes of Central Asia. Between 30 to 40% of the population is nomadic. And the traditional long song is a Mongolian classic form of singing in which each syllable is extended. A long song of 4 minutes may contain only 10 words. Other songs may last up to 3 hours. And here's a video of the long song.
Mongolian traditional art of Homi is one of Mongolia's great and invaluable contributions to the world cultural heritage. This type of unique music art has been developed in the Altai Mountains area, especially in Mongolia, with its own unique characteristics. The history of Mongolian Homi art dates back to hundreds of years. The popularity of Homi among the Mongolians has arisen as a result of close interaction between natural environment and human culture. The animistic worldview of the Mongolians identifies the spirituality of objects in nature, not just in their shape or location, but in their sound and melody as well. The open landscape of Mongolia allows sounds to embrace a great distance. Thus, human mimicry and imitation of sounds of animals, wind, and water is seen as the root of Homi art. Mongolian nomads have developed these mysterious sounds of nature, environment, and nomadic lifestyle, a special genre of music for expressing their emotion, happiness, and labor motivation.
Би бол зүгээр нэг малчин биш одоо сургуулийн соёлтын төгсөөгөө морин дэл дээр хуруу бишгээ хариулж одоо малтагаа носолж явах үедээ л тэгсэл сарсан морин дээр л би бишгчин байж та одоо бодоход бол
Do not doubt when one tells you that I speak to the mountain, water, and grass. It is because beautiful nature is a great composer itself and transmits its own creation to human beings through gifted performers.
Nura Sulilang Rosum Rumda Jagri Namtar Alexum Boral Tandi Dagan Rosum Winda Boral Tawangor.
The exact origin of the Home art is unknown, but researchers suppose that it could have been developed in connection with specific epic-telling vocal technique, shamanic calling, and the play of the wooden sword flute. Home is a generic term defining the whole vocal practice of a single person who voluntarily and simultaneously overlays several sounds, but mainly two sounds with his voice. It is a melody of harmonics sung above a fundamental tone called drone. In Mongolia, this song style has been practiced exclusively by men until recently. However, women have now been practicing it for about 2 generations. A multitude of techniques can be found in Mongolia, and they are grouped within 2 main styles, the harhra or deep home and the skre home or whistle home. The wonder of the home art is its simultaneous melodious overtone. In this way, the home is a phenomenon which differentiates from other traditional arts based on human vocal organs. This is the reason of calling the home performer as human music or hunghuchum, which highlights its specificity from a normal singer. The Mongolians used the human vocal organs to the high degree of level and developed the home as a unique musical art. The bureaus of home art are making much efforts for the development of the traditional apprenticeship training. This has a great role for safeguarding and promoting home art and for its transmission to young generations.
Одоо бол амьсгал нь задраа учраас 10 минут тийм байх хэвээр. Ашигын сайн чагнаж ч мэдв. Эхлээд чэйжийн хархираа маань. Ингээ доороо мэдв. Би чагнаж байгаа. За дараагийнх нь магаал зуръя. Нарийн өнгө чиний саяын дугуурлаа шүү дээ. За юу тэр. Ийм л 3 үндсэн өнгөө гаш тийм энийгээд чи нарийн дээр нэлтэр сургуулаад байсан тийм ээ. Одоо саяын бүдүүн өнгө рүү суран шүнтэй л юу гараа сая. Тэр юм байна. Оо за сая үгүй нөө. За одоо онныхаа жил көмөлжил байна уу? Бэлтгэл хийж байгаа биз? Сайн байна. За одоо нэг дугуйраатахтаа минийх үү? За тэгвэл нарийн өнгөндөө одоо байгаа дануудыг аргагүй шүү дээ тийм байх хэрэгтэй юм уу? Тэгээд аяндаа сургуулаад ирэхдээ тэг бүдүүн өнгөж задгаар ирэхдээ 16-аас хойш насанд одоо задгаар гэсэн шүү дээ тийм аяртай өдөрхтэй боллоо мэдээ.
Mongolian traditional art of home is originated from Altai ethnic groups of Mongolia, and its authenticity and uniqueness have been retained in the western part of Mongolia up to now. Also, it is being successfully developed in the other parts of Mongolia. As an art form created and developed by the Mongolians, Tuvanians, and other ethnic groups, and regarded as the classic art of nomadic civilization, home is one of the core performing arts that shaped the Mongolian national arts in today's Mongolia. Thus, it shows great influence on ensuring the visibility and enhancement of the living art of Mongolia. Home is borne by a variety of ethnic groups as Halch, Bayot, Turgut, Urenkhe, Tsakchen, Tova, and Tsatan in different locations in Mongolia, so there are a number of sub-classifications of home style, reflecting the special features and local flavors. This diversity is what constitutes the richness of home composition, and thus each community is concerned are proud of their own unique styles and techniques, while expressing themselves with such diversity and uniqueness.
Homing төрлүүдийг тус тусад нь
сонсхий. Эхлээд хархираа. Шингийн эсгэрийг дангаар нь сонсох ба. Хосмол хөөмий гэж байгаа. Хосмол хөөмий, хархираа хөөмий, шахаа хөөмий, шингийн эсгэрийн хөөмий тэр бүгд хослож ордгоороо хослол хөөмий.
Inscription of the Mongolian traditional art of Homi on the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity will make a great contribution for the safeguarding of this folk heritage, which reflects exceptional talent of human creating music in close interaction with nature. As one of the mainspring heritage elements expressing the national identity of the Mongolians, the Homi tradition and its emerging tendencies contribute to promoting cultural diversity while manifesting human creativity and capability.
Once he gets the breathing down better, he'll be able to. But it's unique. I think it's awesome. I really do. It's more than using. They're doing more than using their vocal cords. They're using the diaphragm and everything else, and I think it's unique.
I know my grandkids, they walked in and I have that video and they're like, what is that, Grandma? It's like, that's in Mongolia. I said, it's the way they do their music and their voices and everything and singing. And I said, that's kind of odd, I said, but that it's kind of neat though. I said, the way they do their voices and their vocal, and their music. It's so neat to watch how God does. Each one of us are so different in many ways. And so we're going to go ahead and look more on the lesson information. And I know I had gave you guys readings about the fascinating culture of Mongolians, and I have reader for number. Let me look here. Fascinating culture 1A. Does anybody have that? I'll go ahead and give you.
You can hear me, I can talk. Mongolia's unusual climate and rich history contribute to its unique culture. The country, bordered on the south by China and on the north by Russia, contains the world's coldest capital. Ulaanbaatar, I don't know if that's right or not, but can reach minus 40 degrees on both the Fahrenheit and Celsius scales. The frigid temperatures and nomadic lifestyle, 30 to 40% of the population is still nomadic, influence everything from housing to diet to music styles. Many still live in gairs or yurts, which are portable dome-shaped buildings made of felt. Because vegetables are difficult to grow in the cold and on the move, the Mongolian diet relies heavily on meat and dairy. A spatial type of music, throat singing, which we just heard, evolved among nomadic horseback riders. The singer sings two notes at once by using his throat and nose. The country, with nationals descended from Mongolians, is sparsely populated. Genghis Khan, born in Mongolia AD 1162, is credited with uniting most of the Mongol clans. In 1206, he was named Genghis Khan, meaning King of the Oceans or Universal King. How beautiful that the Church of the Nazarene now has an opportunity to introduce Mongolians to the King above all kings. According to Barnabas Fund research in 1989, the country also only had 4 Christians. Many times that number, 35 at the time of this writing, are currently worshiping in the first yurt of the Nazarene.
Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan, established the first Pony Express-style postal services in Mongolia about 1,000 years ago. Correspondence was carried by horse, and urgent messages to which a feather was attached were carried hundreds of miles a day on horseback non-stop. The Mongolian horse post remained in operation until 1949. Although they are not on horseback, Nazarene missionaries carry an urgent message across Mongolia. There is hope. The King above all kings offers salvation. This country, while rich in culture, struggles financially. Some 29.6% of the population in Mongolia lives on less than $1.90 a day, international poverty line. Copper, coal, and gold are important reserves, and mining is a vital part of the economy. Surprisingly, it takes approximately 1.3 tons of coal to keep one family in a yurt or gur warm for 1 month during the coldest part of winter.
Okay. The next one is number okay, I forgot about the questions. How would your life be different if you lived in a place that reached minus 40 degrees on both the Fahrenheit and Celsius scale? And what aspects of Mongolian culture surprises you? So let's now look it's not cooperating with the Okay, now let's look at section missionaries from various world areas. Who has paper number 2? Okay.
Missionaries from various world areas. This new field for the Church of the Nazarene reflects several beautiful trends in Nazarene missions. North America is not the only sending field. Sunny and Lisa from South Korea were the first official missionaries sent by the Church of the Nazarene in 2012 to Mongolia. Establishing one church in the remote country of Mongolia was not enough for Sunny. Discussing the success of the first congregation, Sunny commented, "Praise the Lord, now I am looking for another village where there is no church." These servants of God, like the Apostle Paul, truly desire to serve in areas beyond. Joshua and Christina Chu, also from South Korea, joined the in 2013. How beautiful that South Korea, a new field for the Church of the Nazarene in 1948, is now a sending nation. Chris and Courtney Troutman of the United States arrived in Ulaanbaatar also in 2013 as volunteer missionaries. Books and articles speak of the self-absorption of the next generation. But many Nazarene young people have mission hearts. In fact, more young people desire to serve as missionaries than the church can currently fund. As recent graduates of Southern Nazarene University in Oklahoma, USA, Chris and Courtney represent this new wave of young people who are so anxious to get to the mission field, they are willing to raise their own support. Reggie, a native of Ulaanbaatar, felt led to study Bible and theology. She learned that the Philippines had many theological schools and, in a bold move, went to Manila. Once there, she enrolled in school to improve her English. She researched various seminaries and was impressed with Asia Pacific Nazarene Theological Seminary, APNTS. After a year of English study, she enrolled APNTS and earned her Master of Divinity degree in 2015. Reggie represents many Nazarene national workers who, thanks to more than 50 Nazarene educational institutions around the world, are well educated and able to minister effectively within their own language and culture. The global church recognizes the value of local leaders and celebrates when God calls them.
Thank you. Now for next follow-up questions. What are positive aspects of Nazarene missionaries coming from different world areas? And what do you think of Nazarene young people who are willing to raise their own support in order to get the mission field?
I think it's unique because we've got different cultures. If they're coming from South Korea, from one way, the culture is so much different. And if they're going to areas where the culture might match more with what they're used to, it's a benefit. It's bound to be able to communicate better and do that. And I was thinking that, correct me on this, Glenda, but did Katie Anderson, did she not go as a volunteer when she first went?
When she went to Peru, yes, she went as volunteer. I think she was still there for a couple of years, but then she had married a minister.
And she's still there.
And she's still there, yes, I'm sure that we did.
Yeah.
How can we support them in addition to offering funds?
Knowing birthdays and anniversaries and things like that. Sending care packages and things like that. connection just needs to be given and defined with dots of it. Of course, we have our lanes missionaries over here.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much material from Friday or Sunday school and vacation boxes and the school in the Broadway. And finally ended up going through that stuff and sending it down to school. And then we did a physical things in the house. But usually what they do, they try to do it so that they see that not thanking for it because they actually development.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are
What unique strengths do national workers have to offer? Yeah, the language. In our last section tonight, we'll take a look at the section Creative Methods of Outreach. This is 3A. Does anybody have that? 3A? Jean?
Creative methods of outreach. It is fitting that in a country as unique as Mongolia, missionaries would use creative methods of outreach. The UMs used children's church garage sales and a well to draw people to the first yurt of the Nazarene. The Jews added compassionate ministry projects, taught language classes, and even had a work and witness team build a basketball court for the local young people. Country Troutman teaches English classes while Chris uses music to connect with the Mongolians. Missionaries have long understood the importance of people having access to scriptures in their heart language. Similarly, Chris and others now realize the importance of people worshiping in their heart culture. Instead of translating Western hymns, Chris is helping Mongolian Christians develop worship based on their own rich musical heritage.
Thank you, Jane. All right. And there's one creative method of outreach, 3B. Reggie runs a lively community center in an economically deprived area on the outskirts of the capital. The center offers classes, a gathering place, and a greenhouse. Neighbors enjoy gardening classes and grow vegetables. It is interesting to note that many of the creative approaches used in Mongolia are being used in the U.S., Canada, and other world areas. Opportunities to build communities and connect relationally, all effective in all cultures. What a great reminder that we are more alike than different. Of course, prayer, Bible studies, small groups, and worship services are a vital part of each ministry in Mongolia. Less than 3% of the population are Christian, and the majority are Buddhists, striving for freedom from the cycle of death and rebirth, while many others practice no religion and live without hope of an eternity spent with God. Nazarene missionaries can, for the whole person, physically and intellectually, and especially spiritually. The truth of the gospel sets missions apart from other organizations that simply offer physical aid or education. While it is good to support humanitarian efforts, it is vital that as Christians we continue to support missions. Okay, the next follow-up questions. Did any of the creative outreach methods used in Mongolia surprise you?
Practical things, like all of them, that we don't usually
You don't hear
about
about
being
here.
used.
Mm-hmm.
The yard sales.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yard sale, children's
Yeah.
yard sale.
Well, the children's church, that's, but, yeah.
Would any of these methods work in our own community? And like the yard sales and all that, we, in the U.S. we do all that. So, how is the work of the Church of the Nazarene different from the work of the humanitarian organization?
Humanitarian organization focus mainly on physical needs and stuff, whereas the missionary, the center on soul.
Right. Yeah.
Important message.
Right. All right, let's now go over areas beyond handout. And okay. Mongolia is one of the most sparsely populated nations in the world, and with only 5 people per square mile, 2 people per square kilometer. Okay. Genghis Khan, born AD 1162, united most of the Mongol clans. His grandson, Blank, established the first Pony Express style postal service in Mongolia. Kublai Khan, yeah. Kublai Khan was the one that established the first Pony Express. Between 30 to 40% of the population is nomadic. The traditional long song is a Mongolian classic form of singing in which each syllable is extended. A long song of 4 minutes may contain only words. Other songs may last up to 10 words and 3 hours, correct? Mongolia contains the world's what capital? Yep, coldest. Many still live in yurts or blank, which are portable dome-shaped buildings made of felt. Correct. Yurts. Mm-hmm. In 1989, the country only had Christians, and many times that number, blank, are currently worshiping in the first yurt of Nazarene. How many? 4 Christians, and many times that number is 35 that are currently worshiping in the first yurt of Nazarene. Sonny and Lisa Ohm, the first official missionaries sent by the Church of Nazarene in 2012 to Mongolia, are from where? Right. Good job. Recent Southern Nazarene University graduates Chris and Courtney Troutman represents young people so anxious to get to the mission field they are willing to raise what support? Their own. Yeah. Reggie is a native of, oh, I can't say that name. What's it called? Ulaanbaatar. See, I can handle some tongue twisters either, so. But, okay. Note 3 creative methods of outreach used in Mongolia. What are some methods that they used? We mentioned one. Yeah, kind of like, well, they call them, I guess, garage sales. Oh. Greenhouse, basketball, music, community center, language classes, children's church, and a compassionate ministries.
I was thinking minus 40, the greenhouse would be very, I mean, think about that as an outreach. You know, grow some tomatoes. You could use that. I think, that's taking advantage of your.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. We'll go ahead, and I do have let me see, just a moment. Yeah. I have some papers here that have to do with our World Evangelism Fund. And it says 29.6% of population of Mongolia where copper mining is a vital part of the economy that lives on less than the U.S. $1.90 a day. Consider setting aside $1.90 per day this month for the World Evangelism Fund so that Nazarene missionaries may continue to reach areas beyond. And this is just a kind of a reminder. And it talked about the feather in our story, and who knows what that had to do with. Saying that it was an important message with the feather. They had the feather with a message showing that it was very important for them to look at and to ponder on. So in Mongolia posts, the feather signified as an urgent message is what the feather was to remind them of. And this is a message to that had to do with the gospel, both at home and across the globe. To be able to do what is needed to help one another.
I missed that.
An urgent message.
What?
Urgency of sharing what? The message of the gospel, both at home and across the globe.
He's not supposed to be sleeping.
And it's not Yankee Doodle either.
Sorry for the poor bird when I got the yellow.
Yeah, he felt sorry for the bird. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and I'm going to ask Angie to give us the prayer needs. Maybe if she has it by chance. No? Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and do prayer to close our service. And does anybody have a prayer request that they would like to mention other than what we mentioned earlier this before the service, around the service starting out? Anything else?
It's being
Pastor Toby. She said she'd like to have to be anointed or BK. Yeah, he's back. Okay. We'll go ahead and have you the clone, yeah.
And my cousin Paul and her sister-in-law passed away earlier this morning. They had a Saturday.
Yeah, we have family camp coming up. And we have district assembly falling after. We need to pray for that. How about we gather around in a circle and join hands here at the altar? Okay. And we'll go ahead and let's just have the pastor go ahead and pray for these ones.
Whatever, Angie, PK, if they would just come up first, and then the rest of us gather around, if you would. And, we'll pray for the missionaries, and I'll